It's my delight to be talking to Charles Roberts for the Resident podcast big interview. I'm told, Charles, that you've been here for around 40 years here in Portugal, in the Algarve specifically. Thank you for being here. Thank you for having a chat with me today. How did you get to be here, and what was it like 40 years ago in the Algarve?
Wow. Well, I'm now actually, since 1993, I have been based in Cascais, outside Lisbon.
Okay. Forgive me.
But I
thought you were an Algarve man through and through.
No problem. I started in the Algarve many years ago. Actually, there's a little bit of a story to it. My brother had won a scholarship to reside in Spain in a countess's castle built into the walls of a place called Carmona outside Seville. Beautiful place. And he was to go and paint there for a year free of charge, which he did.
Wow.
And myself and a friend went to visit him and had a great time. And we fell in love with from the castle walls, you could see this orange grove with a water tank in it and a ruined castle. And we had this dream of buying it, restoring it, making marmalade and selling it to Harrods. Yeah?
As you do.
We were very young. Well, of course, we bought it. We didn't restore it. We never made any marmalade, and we signed a very stupid contract that gave the family that sold it to us the right to buy it back. So it all went wrong, yes. And so we left Spain almost penniless, I think, and drove down to a place called Portugal. I'd never heard the word Algarve in my life at that time. This was basically about 1980. Arrived eventually, I had a sort of old Land Rover, ex-army long wheelbase Land Rover, which was my home, basically. Arrived in Albufeira, which at that time, the market was in the center of town. There was one decent pub called Sir Harry's Bar, which was run by Harry Warner, who had at times sewn mailbags in prison in the UK for some heinous crime that he'd committed.
What a character.
Yes, well, he became a great supporter of riding for the disabled, funnily enough, in his second life. And so this friend of mine and I ended up in the Algarve. We were still friends to this day. He became a manager of an art gallery in Portimao for an English guy called Mike Tannock. And I ended up opening what I think was the first ever rent-a-motorbike company in the Algarve. Heaven knows whether it was properly licensed or not. But as I didn't have any money...
Let's not worry about that now.
No. As I didn't have any money, I had to get a guarantor for the purchase of the hire purchase of these four very small motorbikes, which a Dutch bar owner agreed, I think for some part of the profits, if there ever were going to be any. And we could operate from his sort of terrace of his bar in the center of Albufeira. Well, of course, my business acumen, my business ventures didn't actually go very well because he ended up being assassinated.
Oh, no.
Yes, because unbeknown to us, he was a drug dealer, yeah, and he wasn't paying his patrons in Holland. And they had an example made of him, which I won't go into the details of. So suddenly my guarantor was gone.
Yeah.
And almost at the same time, all four motorbikes were rented by I thought they were German girls. And I never saw the motorbikes again.
No.
So was the end of that.
How long? What's in time scale? How quickly did that all happen?
Well, I suppose over a period of about 4 to 6 months, I suppose.
Right.
And so at that point, I left. Yes.
The dream shattered. The dream of being the great entrepreneur. What year would this have been in Albufeira?
In 1980.
1980.
And
wow.
It was, I remember working for a living in the sort of building trade, which I know nothing about. My family's from wool textiles in West Yorkshire. And I was sort of helping to put the toilets in a new Irish bar called the Fastnet. I don't know if it still exists. But, I was doing things that were totally inappropriate to any skill set that I may have had.
Mm-hmm.
And but at that time, as I say, the market was in the centre of Albufeira. It was very, very pretty and fairly lawless. Yeah?
Right. Okay. Part of its appeal, presumably.
I think so. Yes, absolutely, definitely. There was a chap there who he'd run away to Portugal. I've forgotten his name now, but he was from Birmingham, and he was a corrupt solicitor. And on all of the rates in Birmingham that were paid to the government or the council went through his bank account, right? Because he was the solicitor for the council.
Sounds dangerous.
He took, let's say, a penny on the pound or something like that.
Yeah.
It amounted to a lot of money. And he ran off to Portugal because at that time there was no extradition treaty.
Wow.
So there were quite a few, let's say, colourful characters.
We think of Spain being the place for that, don't we? The Costa del Crime, but they left for Spain after Portugal. They went to the Marbella Gun Club, basically, most of them. Wow.
But at that time, and this guy, he owned a discotheque in the centre of Albufeira that he sold he sold it every year, and any people who bought it, they never completed on it because they would see it when it was at its height in the summer. Mm-hmm. And so he'd sell it for £1 million or something and say, pay me over a period of time. And then, of course, it had absolutely no revenue at all during the winter. So those people couldn't afford to keep up the repayment.
You need to get back.
Portuguese law states that if you default on the contract, you can keep the deposit. So,
Of course. So that route was working very nicely for a few years.
But it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun.
How incredible. The Treaty of Windsor then didn't extend to extradition until that little loophole was tightened up by the sound of it.
It didn't, no. So I went back to the UK, and then I came back, as it were, full-time in 1985. But I had been going back and forth to see this friend of mine, Dave, and his wife-to-be. And I came back, as I say, full-time. I was offered a job by somebody I met on one of those holidays into the dreaded timeshare industry.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Excellent. Yeah. But it sounds like that was the tone of the times. You could rock up in Albufeira, in the Algarve, you chat to somebody, you could find work. I mean, those seem like really halcyon days, don't they, in so many ways?
Well, yes. I mean, that was very true. And you'd have to remember that, yes, there were a lot of tourists, but there were very few people looking to work full-time there. You had people working for the tour operators and travel agents, etc. But people looking for a full-time occupation in, like Bruce Hawker in publishing, or Fred Phillips, who you interviewed, in design, etc. That was a fairly small community, so it wasn't difficult to find something. And at that time, this was very much before, or at the initial times of when golf became a big thing, so that you had tourism out of season. Well, you didn't have it then. So the Algarve from late October through to March was a desert. And the only people who were left were the people like myself or Bruce or
very interesting. And that was the atmosphere of the whole of the Algarve. It was very much a tight tourist season until the advent of golf package holidays or golf trips.
Yes, and actually, well, if you'd say for the whole of the Algarve, I would say from Faro to as far as Portimao, because the other extremes, the far west and the far east, were not developed at all at that time.
How fascinating! Not that long ago. We're talking about, really.
No, but I think one of the big differences is that it was prior to them Portugal entering into the economic community as it then was.
Yes,
which obviously made a huge difference to the whole country after that.
How incredible! How incredible! Sorry, I'm struggling to keep up with your career path here. Where did we get to? Installing toilets in the Irish bar?
No. We got to timeshare.
That's right. So how was it for you in timeshare? And as you've sort of premised it, it's a pretty sort of dreaded industry. And so were you having people flying into Faro Airport and you'd lock them in a room and try and sell them something for the weekend?
Just about, yeah. Almost, yeah. My first experience was working for an English company, actually, who were selling timeshare weeks at the Penina Hotel, which is a very famous and respectable hotel, at the time owned by the Sir Charles Forty group.
Oh, yeah. Right, yes.
And they also had a timeshare development in a place called Broome Park in Kent. And we were handing out leaflets at Faro Airport with an invitation from Henry Cooper, no less.
Splash it all over.
Yes. To come and visit the Penina Hotel and enticing them with some promise of, I don't know, a free breakfast or something like that. And,
that was enough in those days, was it?
Yeah, well, next to me was a poor chap, he's dead now, but was a doctor, David Ernst, who was handing out his own leaflets as a doctor. Come and see me if you get ill.
Happy times. So, sorry, which year are we in now?
1985.
We're in 85.
I was involved in timeshare from 85 through to about 89. And but eventually I left Penina and went to work at a development in Albufeira overlooking the whole bay. It was a superb position called Club Monaco. And I spent a lot of time there, and we had lads on the street down below trying to tempt British couples to come up to see the psychedelic swimming pool, yes. Which of course only one colour was working when they got up there, and that was blue. And then be subjected to a sales pitch by me and or another member of my team. And as you say, it was a strange thing because it was high pressure sales. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah.
We were sort of taught and trained by American secondhand car salesmen,
yep.
who don't take no for an answer.
Mm-hmm.
And so once you'd got these people up there and then plonked in front of me, and you had to position them in the right way so that they were looking at the view, best that they weren't able to touch hands together and reassure themselves whilst they were getting this berating from me.
Wow.
You had to learn how to read body language, all sorts of things.
Yeah.
And they were being shown a physical product, so what they were going to buy into, they could see. It wasn't off plan.
Yeah.
But you had to close the deal there and then, right? And take a deposit there and then.
Incredible.
And yes, it was tough stuff. But the funny thing was that afterwards, they might well regret the decision that they made, but they'd made it and they'd paid some money, so that there was no giving back any money. And when they came to stay in the resort, because they'd actually bought a week or 2 weeks, they voluntarily bought more weeks. So it was a good product, a lot of times marketed and sold in a pretty rough way. But the biggest timeshare operators in the world are Marriott. You know, and they're a big, respectable outfit.
I didn't know that. Okay, and that to this day.
Yes.
Wow.
Four Seasons in Quinta do Lago is a Marriott run concept. And the bit that Esther Ransom used to get annoyed about was the way that what were called OPCs, which were the kids on the street, would entice you up to go and see the resort, when in fact what you were getting enticed into was me.
Okay, and what does OPC stand for?
Well, at the time, I can't remember now, but we used to say other people's cigarettes.
So you may have been watching, for anyone who didn't understand the Esther Ranson reference, she ran a consumer, it was a lifestyle magazine program on a Sunday evening, wasn't it, where there would be a little light-hearted stuff but also consumer issues. And that's where you thought, if you watch British TV, you might see yourself turning up on Sunday evening. Charles, we saw you on the TV on Esther was talking about you. And that was the thing at the time, wasn't it? You know, there was the backlash, I suppose, to this new way of selling things to people.
Yes, I mean, it was for anybody to really understand it, I suppose the British thing would be going back to the double glazing salesman.
You won't leave your living room.
Yeah, or the Kirby vacuum cleaner. Yeah?
Oh yes, absolutely.
There was a bit of that attached. There was a lot of fun.
I bet.
And good camaraderie, etc.
I'm sure. Yeah, and I can only imagine, Charles. You know, the end of a good week selling timeshare, you must have partied hard and had a great time.
Well, we did, because I eventually moved up into management, but there was a philosophy that you would pay the salesperson instantly. So he closed the deal, took a deposit, he got the money in cash that day. Yeah. So, and then he'd spend it, of course. Yeah. So that meant he had to close more deals in order to do the same tomorrow.
Yes, that's the salesman. It's interesting, isn't it? Because there's two sides to this. There's the public side, which is well documented, I suppose, and how you sort of prefaced the dreaded timeshare. But there's also that's in the sales world. It's a thing as well, isn't it? About how the salesman, often easily sold to themselves, operates and needs to be back in the same room the next day to pay the bill that they created the night before, celebrating yesterday's sales. Amazing. Whatever made you leave that heady world?
I think, well, actually, a mixture of things. We actually sold out the whole of the development, which was
nice work.
The biggest timeshare development in the Algarve was actually run by the then owner of West Ham Football Club, who was an excellent club. The place was called Club Priadora. His name has just gone from me now, but he was an excellent pornographer.
Was he the pornographer as well?
No, that was in Carvuero, funnily enough. He was an ex-London taxi driver.
Right. Okay.
Somebody will probably send you a message of his.
Yes, I hope so. No, I mean, all along in our conversation here, people will be saying, "Oh, that bar, yes, that man, yes, I remember him. Charles sold me a place. Let's hear from you in the comments. That'll be hilarious." But yeah, okay. So
I left that, and then actually I went into what people would then say was a more respectable, even though we are as hated as dentists and lawyers. I went into conventional real estate and started working for, by pure coincidence, golf leisure resorts that had a real estate component. So I was sales manager or sales director, whatever you want to say.
Yes.
First for a resort in the Algarve called Pine Cliffs, which has a Sheraton hotel, and at that time we had as our biggest advertising was that Nigel Mansell was, we didn't say he owned something, but was associated with the resort.
Very good.
And dear Nigel, he would, there was a villa that was built that he could occupy any time that he was there, which was only ever once a year.
The Mansell Suite.
Well, it was quite a nice villa.
Yeah.
And he had to come and play one 9-hole invitational golf tournament per annum. Yeah. And I think we paid, the owners paid a lot of his expenses. And of course, the general public thought that he was financially involved in the resort. Yeah.
Yes, and you didn't tell them otherwise.
Well, no, why should I? And of course, it was quite successful, but it was owned by a group, or being developed by a group called the Kuwaiti Investment Organization. And we were, I don't know, 4 or 5 months away from opening the hotel. And Saddam Hussein walked into Kuwait.
Right.
And so suddenly all the investors basically disappeared. Yeah.
Yeah.
And the whole thing came to a grinding halt with the hotel not finished and no money to finish it. Yeah.
Wow.
Plus a couple of other problems, such as the town hall of Albufeira, because Pinecliffs is not far from Albufeira, saying, yes, it is our absolute duty to provide sewage mains drains to where your Pinecliffs resort is, 5 miles away from Albufeira, but we haven't got any money. So if you want to get connected, you've got to do it yourself, guys. Yeah.
Wow.
Well, that was fairly common in those days. In effect, we got paralyzed, and the Kuwaiti Investment Organization went away really for the best part of over a year, and the company that had built the hotel, Suarez da Costa, weren't paid, and under Portuguese law, the builder owns the building until he is paid. Yeah. So that took some time to sort out. And in the meantime, I got a contact, or I got contacted by a wonderful man actually called Sami Morad, who was working at a brand new development called Peñalonga, which was outside Estoril towards Sintra, and was owned by Japanese. So I moved from having one corporate culture, which was Arab, through to a Japanese corporate culture. And I was asked up to go for an interview. And you've got to remember that at this time, there was nothing going on at Pinecliffs because there was no money. We weren't getting paid. We couldn't sell anything. And he said, well, will you be able to come up and talk? I said, well, I'm terribly busy. He said, well, in that case, I can fly you up for the day.
Excellent.
So I said, well, I'll look at my agenda.
I might be able to fit you in.
Yes.
Yes.
So I went up. And he was a wonderful man, actually. And
what was that contrast like from Arab to Japanese business culture?
Oh, completely different.
Like chalk and cheese.
Completely different. Chalk and cheese. And then after Peñalonga, where I stayed for about 3 years, I was then recruited to go to another development up nearer where you are, called Praia del Rey in Portugal.
Yes.
And that was, I'm a Yorkshireman, yeah, and that was owned and run by a Jewish Yorkshireman from Sheffield. Yeah.
No way.
Yes, and I can tell you, their corporate cultures were amazingly different. And this guy, Stuart Swicher, who I was working for, I mean, he was a fanatical Sheffield United supporter, and I'm fairly fanatical Leeds United supporter. So we would have the most horrendous rows about
the good old days.
Well, how the resort should be run and how the sales.
Not about football. Not about football.
Well, no, but we'd always end up talking about football. That was
good.
That was the saving grace. Yeah?
Yes. Wow. Bonded by Yorkshire football. Yeah.
But that actually caused me quite a lot of problems, because moving from a sort of Middle East culture to a Japanese business culture, which is completely different to anything. Yeah?
Yes.
And then to, a very English business culture with a sort of a Jewish edge to it, yeah,
and a Yorkshire ethic as well. We're not going to be wasting any money there, are we?
Well, no, and what was good, we both had a very dry sense of humour, which absolutely nobody else could understand at all.
Yeah. Well, and people thinking you're arguing and it's going terribly wrong, but actually you're quite bonded beneath the surface.
Yes, a lot of that. And then after that, I went to work. I stayed up at Praia del Rey for about 10 or 11 years, yeah. And then we'd had enough of each other,
It's all very well, but this has to stop. Yes.
For a couple of years afterwards, we couldn't stand the sight of each other. I mean, we're mates again now.
Yeah.
And I was asked whether I would help a real estate agency who had the license for Christie's Great Estates.
Yep.
And they had the license for all of Portugal, but they didn't have anybody who could look after, let's say, central Portugal, because they were an Algarve-based company. So I ended up running let's say, the Lisbon, Cascais, Estoril, Sintra, all of that area for a number of years, and then eventually branched off on my own with a Portuguese partner. And about, 14 years ago, 14 years ago, we set up our own real estate company, which after about a year, we joined forces with a brand called Fine & Country. And at that time, the area for which we had the license was basically just Cascais and Estoril. And we broadened that to include Porto, to include all of Lisbon, Greater Lisbon, and also Comporta. Yeah?
Amazing, right?
And then we were the owners of Fine & Country, which is a UK-based, let's say, upper end of the market.
Yeah, absolutely.
Real estate agency. We're looking to cover the Algarve, and that was not something that we felt capable of doing at 300 kilometers distance. And we suggested to them an old friend of mine called Bruce Hawker, who is the co-owner of the Resident. Yeah.
Yes, all roads lead, it would appear. Wow, incredible. Now, as the would-be marmalade magnate and the motorbike entrepreneur, did you ever see this coming? Because you must have some of the deepest, widest, and best experience of real estate in Portugal now, with all that you've said and been involved with over the years. Would you have seen that happening back in 1980?
No, not at all. Because as I said earlier, I came from we had a wool textile business in Bradford.
Yeah.
We imported what were called hundreds merinos, which was the finest quality Australian fleeces of sheep, and turned it into yarn to be spun into expensive suits.
How amazing!
And in fact, none of the family went into the business. So, no, I think I before this, I can't go into. I spent a couple of years on a kibbutz in Israel, when my hair was down to my waist and I looked a bit like someone from ZZ Top. Yeah.
We need a picture. Please, can we have a picture?
And I was driving a tractor, and to be quite honest, I absolutely adored farming.
Right.
And so if you'd asked me in 1980 what I wanted to do, it was something like that.
Yeah.
And then I ended up, I suppose, people told me at one point, "Oh, Charles, you can sell sand to Arabs," and that sort of thing. So I suppose I had the gift of the gab or what have you. So I didn't see it coming, but I soon realized over the years that if you have a decent reputation, you can destroy it in 5 minutes by doing something unethical or whatever. I haven't destroyed mine, I hope. I hope
No.
I'm fairly decent. A checkered past, but a decent name, maybe.
Yeah, absolutely. And just so 2 questions, and we haven't got enough time here to ask everything I want to, and I'd love it if you come back for part 2 because it's so fascinating to find out about you and Portugal. Just quickly as an aside, there will be salespeople watching this, because there are a few people, making their living, foreigners, I think, coming to Portugal. Some of our readership, even at the Resident, who will be will have sales as part of their repertoire, if not completely. How they're going about earning their living. As it turns out, as a seasoned salesman who sold sand to and for the Arabs. What's your advice to sales? What's your sales kind of nugget and insight in the secret of sales, if you can distill that?
If you don't establish trust between you and the person that you are trying to sell to, you will never get anywhere.
Okay.
And secondly, don't be afraid of rejection. That is a salesman's worst fear, is rejection. Yes. So they never want to ask the question, do we have a deal? Yes. Because they might get a no.
Yes. And you got over that quite quickly, did you?
We were taught by the USA, Florida salespeople, your job didn't start until you got that first no. That's when you had to start to overcome the objections.
Yes.
So if you don't know what the objections are, you don't know what to overcome. And you have to establish trust, and also, if you can, a common bond.
Yeah. Football or
whatever.
Yes, absolutely. Look for that and find it and talk and connect on it. Finally, then, where do you think this is all going? You'll have seen the changing fortunes and popularity of Portugal. What an exciting time to be in Portugal in many ways, real estate wise, and in Cascais, for heaven's sakes. That's transformed incredibly, hasn't it, in the last few years? Where do you see this going? Where do you see real estate going in maybe the next 10 years?
Well, I think I can only really talk about or give an opinion on that question in relation to the international market looking at Portugal.
Yep.
And when one door closes, another one seems to open. The golden visa finished, or the property related aspect of the golden visa finished, and everybody thought, oh dear, this is ghastly. Recessions happen. Now all of a sudden the Americans are here, so everybody's forgotten about the golden visa. You get new areas coming on board like Comporta, which were, there was nothing there 10 years ago, and now it's all a la mode.
Yes.
Areas of Lisbon that, like the areas of Chiado, etc., which were abandoned and desolate and after the fire, nobody ever did them up. And then the rent laws changed, and suddenly developers could move out people from low rents and give them alternative accommodation and transform the face of Lisbon beautifully, in my opinion. Absolutely beautifully. But Lisbon still retains some of that decadence.
The grit.
And it's small. So it's popular across a whole plethora of nationalities, somewhat different to the Algarve, which was very UK, and let's say the West End was at one time very German based.
Yes.
Lisbon and Cascais and Estoril are a complete mixture of nationalities, and the Portuguese, in general terms, let's take the politics out for a second of all this business of foreigners coming here and putting the prices up, etc., because that's a separate argument. But the Portuguese are very, very welcoming to foreigners. There's none of the arrogance that you might say would be associated with France or even Spain. The language skills here are excellent. The crime rate is low. The cuisine, I think, is fantastic. Best seafood in the world, to me.
Yes.
It's a nice place to live. My daughter, just to sort of finish this, my daughter, who was born here, educated here, luckily in an international school, and now lives in London, and she was brought up in Cascais, and she said to me after she left here and went on a year out and went to Vietnam and what have you, she said, "Daddy, I didn't realize I was living in a bubble."
Yeah.
Till afterwards, but it's a nice bubble.
Yes. What a lovely thing to hear as a parent.
Yeah.
Possibly to prospective parents, people with kids already who are thinking of a nice place to move to. What a glowing recommendation, and completely from your own experience, of course, of being here from back in landing in 1980, barely knowing what Portugal was.
Well, that's true, but I'm a very much a glass half full.
Right.
So just to answer your question, I think that Portugal, it may have its ups and downs, but the curve will always be on the up. Yeah. And I'm very positive for how the future will be.
How wonderful. Thank you very much. I'm looking forward to part 2 already, where we can, but maybe we will talk about, did the foreigners put the prices up? Charles,
Yes.
Thank you so much for talking to me today.
My pleasure, Carl. Great to meet you. Thank you.